refreshing when you have a belief on something or an opinion on something, specifically when it comes to sports. Actually, all the times when it comes to sports and it comes to fruition. Like, for example, I did not go to LSU's pro day today, but I think Malik Neighbors might be the best wide receiver in this year's NFL draft. We're not going to talk about NFL. This is a college football show. Specifically, we're going to go around the SEC. We have not been here in 2 episodes or 2 days that we have normally been doing this. But, however, we are back at it. And today we'll talk about the Oklahoma Sooners, who I do believe is arguably the team that gets left out of the SEC the most. Now, rightfully so to some extent, mainly due to the fact that they are a newcomer, but they are a big-time college football brand. Not a lot of people talking about them going into the season of 2024. Today, we will tackle that. I do think that Oklahoma has a lot of really good pieces to utilize and use for this upcoming season in year one of the SEC. But I do think, I think maybe we have to wait and see a little bit, but I do think that there are 2 massive areas, that if Oklahoma does not get better in moving from the Big 12 to the SEC, they're going to be in a massive world of trouble. We'll talk about that here today as well. Also, Lane Kiffin has some very interesting comments about they're going through spring, and obviously we've talked about this a little bit on our program. The new age or new thing that we talk about in reference to helmets or microphones and helmets where coaches can tell the quarterback what the play is, get the play in. Lane Kiffin was asked about that. He calls it a cheat code, but there's some other chatter that's coming out of Ole Miss that if you do not hit on, you're going to be in a world of trouble, because when you have preseason expectations the way that Ole Miss does, you better hit on them. Lane Kiffin saying it's a cheat code. Prince Human yelling, the defensive end, the transfer from Florida, saying, no, they just, at Florida, they pretty much just said, go be an athlete. Here, I'm actually getting coached. You cannot say things like that and have a non-productive season, regardless of who you are. So we'll touch on that as well. I do think we'll spend a little bit of time of what Lane said in reference to the helmets and the play calling. I think it's the biggest thing that has happened to college football over the last 2 years, more than anybody is going to talk about when we're projecting and talking about on field. I am so tired of having to talk about off-field issues, NIL portal. Those are big deals and big things as well. But I do think that the bottom line holds that the microphone and helmets for offense and defensive players will be the biggest thing that we've had the last 2 years. This is a little bit dated, our next topic, but it's still a big thing. We have not been able to be on this show doing our around the SEC, but the SEC schedule for 2025 was released. I'm going to go in a little bit on Greg Sankey, because I do think that he's gotten a little bit lazy on some of these things, and no one has the cojones, or as they would say in the movie Major League 2, no one has the marbles to tell him where he's messing up. Today, we're going to tackle that, and hopefully there's not a lot of blowback, but I do think that he's got to get better in 2 specific areas as well. And then at the end of the show, if we have time, we'll do hashtag Ask Blake, thoughts, questions, concerns. You can fire them inside the Rudy Crew chat, and we will get to as many of them as we can. Paul Franks, what's up, Paul? Says, happy Easter from the 337 in Ville Platte. I tell y'all this all the time, man, and I will continue to tell you. The people out in Ville Platte, man, you don't mess around with them. You do not mess around with them, the good people of Ville Platte. Chris Lomax says, let's go. Nothing like enjoying my day off with my guy, Blake Ruffino. Well, good to have you in here, Chris. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's been fun, doing this for doing this SEC. It's going to gain traction when the football season starts. I do promise you that. But it's been fun. Being able to talk about LSU and the SEC football-wise has been really fun as well. We expect Jake Crane, who I tried to get on today, was unable to. I asked him really late. He was on the road. But so we're going to be looking to add Jay Crane into the show sometime next week. So looking forward to that. So look, we got lots to talk about. I think that I just think that Oklahoma, for the brand that they are, is the least talked about team in the entire SEC. We'll touch on that. Or going into the SEC. I have spoke with a lot of Alabama. I have spoke with a lot of Oklahoma fans. When the news was announced that they were coming to the SEC, they think that they're going to be able to walk in and be competitive. I disagree. I don't think that they're going to be able to be competitive the way that they thought that they would be. I don't think that they're going to be competitive the way that they once were. Also, Oklahoma fans are telling me that they're going to be able to recruit a lot better now that SEC patch is on their jersey. I also disagree with that. So we'll touch on that as well. I don't think the Oklahoma faithful are going to be really happy with me here today, but it is what it is. Nothing I can do about that. Nothing I can do about that. Got Chris Phillips over at SEC Unfiltered. What's up, my guy? Says, my guy Blake, excited to talk some LSU football next week. Yes, we will be joining our guy Chris next week at some point to talk some SEC football. Always fun. Might talk a little bit about baseball too. You know, might talk a little bit of baseball. You know, I can't walk out of there without talking a little bit of baseball with my guy Chris. He was on with us last week as well. Yeah, guys, I did see it. Jaden Daniels going berserk when Malik Neighbors had the 42-inch vert. That's hilarious. That's what it's all about, though. That's what it's all about. So yeah, the LSU Pro Day is today, and Malik Neighbors jumped to 42 and then started skipping, and then Jaden Daniels runs up behind him and starts, chest bumping him. You gotta love it, man. I got to admit, there are a lot of teams that I've covered. None more fun than 2019 LSU. Burrow, Jesus behind us, but no more fun than this year's football team. It was a really fun team to cover. A lot of great guys that will be in the NFL this upcoming year. Sherry Berry says, let's go. Good to have you in here, Sherry. Chance Babin says, Sankey won't go to 9 SEC games until ESPN pays up. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but it's not ultimately his decision either. It goes to a vote, and it was shot down again. I do think that Sankey wants 9 games. But I also do agree that he does, and Chance, to your point, I do agree that Sankey does believe and think that ESPN needs to pay more. But my question becomes in all this, how much more do you want ESPN to pay? Because you're getting the playoff money from them. You're getting the TV revenue money for them. You're going to be, the ESPN's going to be continuously pushing the SEC. I get what they're saying there. I just actually disagree with that. Yes, you got another SEC game. You want more money. I get that, but it is what it is. Chance also says if Lincoln Riley was still at Oklahoma, it would be more news, but Venables is a better fit for the SEC. I fully agree with that. Got to get better in 2 areas, and we'll talk about that as well. All right, one more before we get rolling. Mike on YouTube, he says, what's up, people from St. Landry, Louisiana, the big 337. Good to have you in here, Mike. Yeah, the 337 always representing themselves on AYS. Let's do this and let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. If you are on Facebook, share to all those groups, share to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and notification bell wherever you are listening to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. Listen, if you are big in March Madness, if you like to gamble in March Madness, they are the place that you need to go. You can use that promo code BELIEVE50. That's BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 at checkout. You'll get a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That way that they know that Blake sends you on by. But guys, they have so many deals. They're giving out $50,000 cash. They're doing so many big time prop bets. You need to go over to betonline.ag today. Use your mobile device to do it. That's where I place all my bets. That's where you should be placing all your bets as well. Let's take a quick break. We got to talk about Oklahoma around your SEC. Picks back up. We do that next. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
We're back. Malik Neighbors just ran a 4.35. Malik Neighbors with a 4.35 40. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Kid's special, man. The kid is special. No wonder why Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't want to compete in the combine, because he's going to get outshined by yours truly in Malik Neighbors. Arguably, guys, got to be one of the best, maybe just to ever do it at LSU. Maybe he's definitely in the conversation. Let's put it like that. All right, let's get rolling. Guys, we head on over to Soonerland. We head on over to Oklahoma. So, look, I do think that when we project in the SEC, a team that historically, at least right now, that is constantly left out when we're previewing the 2024 season has got to be the Oklahoma Sooners. Is that right? I mean, is it right to leave out Oklahoma when it comes to our preview in 2024? Probably not. They're still a really massive brand. They got a lot of really good players that we'll talk about here. Billy Bowman coming back, who had 6 picks last year, had 3 touchdowns to boot. They got a lot of really good players defensively. There are 2 areas, though, that I think that Oklahoma right now is not good enough to compete in the SEC. Now, they will argue, and I know that Oklahoma fans will argue that point. But as someone who's covered the SEC for some time now, I don't think that they understand the week in, week out gauntlet that they're about to have to go through. And by the way, their schedule is not easy. Now, look, there is a lot of production that returns. Okay, they got some good running backs. They got the number 1 running back in the country coming in as well. But Gavin Sawchuk returns. Okay, he had 744 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. Jaleel Farouk returns. He had 45 catches, almost 700 yards, and 2 TDs. Andrell Anthony also returns 27 catches, 429 yards. I do think that they have some pretty decent skill position players. I don't know if they have that guy. I just really don't know if Oklahoma right now has that dude on the outside that scares you. Now, what they do have, okay, and what they're going to have to replace is Drake Stoops, who had 84 catches a year ago, right around 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. They got to replace that. Now, we'll talk about some of their additions in a minute. they do go and get a massive addition in Deion Burks through the transfer portal. I'm really worried about this team offensively. And I know, again, like I said, Oklahoma fans will disagree. But they had to go in the portal and pretty much grab all offensive linemen that they could. They go into the portal, they grab 4 offensive linemen. Look, they grab Hatchett from Washington. They grab Spencer Brown from Michigan State. They add Wee-Woo, okay, from North Texas. They add Michael Tranquin from USC. Guys, that's not going to work well. Like, I legitimately don't think that adding that many offensive linemen is going to work well. I think that you, especially at that position, a position that I played, cohesiveness is a big thing. I think that we've seen when teams in the SEC specifically have tried to overhaul their a position group, especially up front, it has not worked well unless you've gotten guys like what Ole Miss has done. I do not believe, at least in my God's honest opinion, I don't know if Oklahoma right now, from an offensive standpoint, is ready to come into this league and compete up front along that offensive line. I'm not saying any of these guys aren't good. I think going and getting Wee-Woo from North Texas is a big-time pickup. I think going and getting Spencer Brown from Michigan State, let's see what he can do. I think getting Hatchett from Washington, it's going to be a good piece. I do think that being together, being a cohesive unit is a big-time question. We've seen teams in the SEC try to overhaul a position group, and majority of the time it fails. You'll see something right here. If you don't believe that I'll even attack, but even talk about LSU, a team that I cover as well. LSU tried to do it in the transfer portal last year at DB, and they fell flat on their face in doing it. I don't know if you do that the same way on the offensive line if you're Oklahoma, but Jackson Arnold, who's going to be the quarterback, with the inexperience in college that he has, a first-time starter going into the SEC, I know that he's a 5-star guy. I know that he has all the tools. My question becomes, with an offensive line that is not experienced all with one another, now you have other pieces in there as well. I don't know if Jackson Arnold, it's fair for Jackson Arnold to be the guy that bailed you out. I thought Dylan Gabriel a lot last year bailed you out with things that he did with his legs. Can Jackson Arnold do that? I think is going to be a very big deal that he's going to have to accomplish. But I just don't think I think it's going to be a struggle for Oklahoma in this league offensively. Now, they do go out and add Deion Burks, okay, the wide receiver, who had 47 catches last year, 629 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Can he replace a Drake Stoops? If he can, that would be a big-time addition. I think running the ball in this league is going to be much tougher on them, though, and it's going to put more pressure on Jackson Arnold. Let's talk about Jackson Arnold for a minute. I know that he had times last year where he played, even in the bowl game, that a lot of people were out on him. I do think when it comes to him that he does have all the tools and ability. I just don't know if he has the weapons around him that is going to take him to the next level. Quite honestly, I think I think that he's going to have to elevate his play so much for this team to get to 9 to 10 wins. If Oklahoma goes into the season and gets 9 and 10 wins year one in the SEC, they have overachieved based off of what I see right now with the personnel that they have. I like Jalil Farouk. I like him a lot. I think he's a really good receiver. I like the addition of Deion Burks. Think he's a really good receiver. But we have seen in this conference, if that's what you're going to have on the outside, guys, it's not going to work. You need explosive playmakers. Now, I do think in the running game, they return a lot. They got Gavin that's coming back. He had 120 carries, 744 yards, and 9 touchdowns. They add Tatum, who was the number one back in the country. But running the football in this league right now is not completely conducive. There's a lot of teams in this league that can score points. You know, for example, man, like you look down their schedule, which we'll go and talk about in just a moment here. They did not get any favors with it. Now they got some really good matchups. They got some matchups that I think that they can win. But like you go to Death Valley, that's not an easy place to play. And I love Oklahoma coming here. I love them as a blue blood coming here to play. I just don't think that they have the dudes. Now they're going to argue that. And I am fully prepared for Oklahoma fans to come in here right now and argue me with that. The bottom line is, though, you cannot continue to recruit at the skill position and the offensive line the way that you're recruiting and think that it's going to be conducive to wins and success along the offense. Jackson Arnold's great, but he can't do everything for you in this league. You know, the comp that I would give, now stay with me, not a comp with them in reference to them being the type of player, but do you remember the Bryce Young year in 2022? And everybody was like, well, Bryce just doesn't have the dudes on the outside that can help him. That's Alabama. And the reason that they did not win their division in 22 was because they didn't. Now, they were able to win it because they played a great defense. We'll get to that in a minute. Defensively, they were fantastic. I don't know if you're that great defensively that you can come in and win the league. But if you want to get where you want to go, if Oklahoma wants to be a team that constantly sees themselves in the college football playoff, you're going to have to get better personnel on offense. Let's transition to the defense. Listen, they got a lot of returners on defense, and I do think this defense going into the league has arguably got to be one of the bigger slept-on units in the conference. Look, you bring back Danny Stutzman, you bring back Ethan Downs, you got DeJohn Terry, the big nose tackle, Billy Bowman, who I think is the most underrated defender in this league right now. Last year, he had 63 tackles, 6 picks, 3 touchdowns, and Jared Canuck. Here's the problem with them defensively. I think they got here's the positives. I think that they got a lot of dudes. I think they got a lot of dudes that are going to play on Sundays. You add in a guy in the interior like David Stone, I think he can instantly come in and play for you. I don't know if he'll start, how quickly he'll start. I do think he can come in and play. The problem that I have with them defensively is they did not do a great job at getting after the quarterback. They played tenaciously against Texas in a rivalry game, and I think that if you get that type of defense, they can compete with anybody in this league. The problem is they didn't even have a guy last year, a guy returning that had over 5 sacks. Do they have the guy? Do they have the dude that can get to the quarterback that much? Now, in a Venable system, we saw this a lot of times at Clemson. They are going to come after the quarterback by committee. They're going to do different things schematically to get after the quarterback. I think that Oklahoma is going to keep themselves in every single game because of the studs and the dudes that they have on defense. Don't think it's going to matter, though, because ultimately I do think that this defense that will keep them in majority of their games and quite honestly might win them some games that maybe we don't expect. I think it's going to be so overshadowed at times by the inability to succeed on offense. Here's another thing. They brought in Casey Thompson, the quarterback from FAU. If you're a college football fan, you should know who Casey Thompson is by now. He's been all over the place to back up Jackson Arnold. I don't know if Arnold struggles, do you go to experience? Do you go to Casey Thompson? I highly doubt it. I just don't like what they have on the offensive side of the ball. I think that there's what Oklahoma fans are not calculating for is the ability, okay, or the toughness that it has or that it takes to be in this league every single week. Now, we talked about that we were going to talk about their schedule, and I'm going to pull it up right here. Okay, let me pull it up, and we'll actually just bring it up on screen. Guys, can we bring this up on screen? Can we bring this? Yeah, can we bring their schedule up on screen? Okay, thank you. Just let me know. All right, y'all got it? All right, roll with it. All right, this is Oklahoma's schedule for next year. Now, look, they open up the year next year with Temple, Houston, Tulane. They got a relatively easy schedule when it comes to starting the season. They're going to be 3-0. I like Tulane. I know that they got a new coaching staff, but they're going to win the first 3 games of their schedule. I don't think Houston's good enough. I love Willie Fritz. I love Tulane, and I love what they're doing over there as well. But the bottom line for me is pretty simple. Okay, guys, can we do that? There we go. There we go. There's the schedule. It's a little bit better. The Temple Owls is who they have in week 1, the Houston Cougars, Tulane, Green Wave. They got Tennessee Volunteers at home. Let's stop right there for just a moment. I think that this is what starts the true test for them, clearly. I don't know if they can beat Tennessee right now. I am not convinced that even though Tennessee is going into Oklahoma, I don't know if Nico goes off. I do think that is a potential game that is a toss-up that they can lose. Considering that game is at home, I would give them a nod. I'd say, you know what, man, I'm going to give you the nod, okay, for you to win that game, because I do think Tennessee's got a lot of things that they got to figure out themselves. But here's where things start to get very interesting for them, and why I think that this is just going to be one of the toughest schedules, and is one of the toughest schedules in all of the SEC. So after that Tennessee game, they go to Jordan-Hare. By the way, Oklahoma fans, I don't give two Rudy Poos how good or bad you think Auburn is. Let me tell you something from experience. What I know from experience is that Auburn, you going there, is arguably one of the toughest places to play. I'm going to give you another toss-up game there too, because I don't think that you understand that every team that goes in there, Alabama, who was a playoff team last year, Georgia, who should have been a playoff team last year, both of them struggled going on the road to Auburn. I get that it's a rivalry game. It doesn't matter. Auburn has got to be one of the top 2 or 3 toughest places to play in all of the SEC. So you have a bye week, then you play Texas in Dallas, you go to the Cotton Bowl. I do think that Texas is going to want to get a little bit of revenge. So even if, let's just say, from Auburn to Tennessee to Tulane to Houston to Temple, let's say that they win all 5 of those games. Let's look at the rest of their schedule. They play Texas. I think that that's a loss. They play South Carolina. I think that's a win. So they're 6-1. They got to go to Ole Miss. I think that that's a loss. That's 2 losses. Maine Bears, obviously, that's 7 wins right there. They go to Missouri. And I got to be real with you. I don't think that they can beat Missouri right now. I don't think that they have the offensive explosion to go into Como and beat the Missouri Tigers. Then they have an off week. They got Alabama at home. You do not have the personnel that they do. I think that that's another loss. And then you go to Death Valley. I also think that there's a loss there because I just don't think that you're talented enough and that you're good enough to beat those teams. Guys, the ceiling for them right now, I think, is 8-4. I legitimately believe that. But I also think that they have a very low floor. I think that they're a team that is going to be 7-5, 8-4. Maybe they can find a way, if this offense finds a way to get better, they can find a way to get to 9-3. But contending, being a contender year 1 in the SEC, being a guy or being a team that thinks that they can be in the playoff in year one, I think is the arguably one of the biggest laughable things that I've heard from Oklahoma media and fans. You are not coming into this league with that schedule and getting to the playoff. It's not happening. I don't think that you're better than Texas. I don't think you're better than LSU. I don't think that you're better than Alabama. I don't think that you're better than Ole Miss. I don't think that you're better than Missouri. And even if you beat one, maybe two of those teams, I still think that you got two toss-ups against Tennessee, and I think that you have a toss-up against Auburn, having to go there. Now, if that game was at home and you were playing Auburn at home, well, I'd probably give you the nod there. I like Oklahoma in the league. I think that they are the most slept-on team right now because we legitimately just don't look at them as a contender. They're going to be a solid team, especially defensively. 1,000% they're going to be a team defensively that you got to contend with. But for me, I just can't see it. All right. Let's get to a couple of these comments. Yes. Malik Neighbors with a 4.35 40-yard dash. I see y'all. Y'all hit me up on Twitter. So happy for that kid, man. So happy for him. Paul Sub says Casey Thompson, Mr. Glass Bones. Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, though, man. The only reason you go and get Casey Thompson is because he knows that he's going to be a backup. He also knows, and you want a veteran presence that if Jackson Arnold gets hurt or, God forbid, something happens where he's just not performing, you might have somebody that has experience, has been in college football that can help you maybe get a win or two. It's not going to matter. It's not at that point. If you go to Casey Thompson, it's not if you're going to lose, it's by how much. I don't think that they have enough firepower offensively to beat Texas. I just don't. And I think Texas is going to want some revenge. Now, let me say this, because I think that this gets overshadowed when we talk about Brent Venables. I think Brent Venables has done a pretty damn good job. Look, they go, 6-7 in year one. They have to completely rebuild what they're doing at Oklahoma. He returns. He goes 10-3 this past season. I think he's going to have to get, for Oklahoma fans, he's going to have to get some grace. And I think for national college football fans, he needs some grace. Really, I do. But if Brent wants to be successful, if he ultimately wants to be highly successful in this league, he's going to have to get better along the offensive line. He's going to have to get better at the skill position out wide. Deion Burks is a really good addition. I'm not saying that it's not. There's a lot of great corners in this league. There's a lot of great defenses in this league. The reason why historically, and I understand that Michigan won the national title this year, but they were built like an SEC team too. Defensive line, offensive line. You don't have the dudes up front to win. Now, I think David Stone is a guy that can come in instantly and play and be a wrecking ball and be a disruptor. Defensively, they're going to be fine. Defensively, they're going to be – I do think that they'll be in every game. But if you give up 21, 24 points, hell, even if, God forbid, you give up 30 points, can Jackson Arnold lead you to get you there? I don't think so. Oh, by the way, Jeff Lebby's not there anymore. And they argued me. Oklahoma fans argued me up and down about Jeff Lebby. Guys, I just want to tell you the truth. Jeff Lebby might be one of the best offensive play callers in the entire country. Like, it's not even close. No, you want to know why you had offensive stalls? Because you don't have the personnel. Another truth, Dylan Gabriel should still be your starting quarterback. I'd feel much better about where you're going if Gabriel was still there. You got too many question marks. You go into the portal and get 4 offensive linemen. I don't like that. I don't like that you have to overhaul in the portal at one position group. I mean, man, look, I'm not trying to talk about the kid from North Texas and Wee Woo, but Wee Woo has never seen the D line and the dudes. Then, like, he just hasn't. He just hasn't. Neither has Hatchett, the kid from Washington. Not in a week in, week out basis, they haven't. I like Oklahoma a lot. I just don't think that they have the firepower. They're going to hate me for saying it, but sometimes the truth hurts. Ryan on Facebook says, take at least 2 years for Oklahoma to get recruits they need to compete at a high level. Here's a problem I have with that, Ryan. I vehemently, I kind of somewhat disagree with you. You know, here's what happened, at least with me. Okay. My man is moving. Here's what happened with me. Okay. And this is what I look at. 2 years ago, Oklahoma fans in a Twitter space, which I don't ever go in them anymore now. I think that Twitter spaces are highly toxic. 2 years ago, Oklahoma fans try to convince me that once they got that SEC patch on their shoulder, that they would get better in recruiting. No, what's going to happen here is if there's a guy in Oklahoma, now that the SEC has a footprint and these teams have a footprint in that state more now than they ever have, it's going to be more of a battle for you. You can argue that all you want. But I promise you, recruiting in this league is a juggernaut that you're not doing good. I mean, guys, you're in year 3 of Brent Venables. You're going into year 3 of Brent Venables. What more do you need for him to get an establishment offensively? He had one of the best play callers in the country in Jeff Levy. I'm not saying it's not going to work with Brent Venables. I think you need to give him time. You're not recruiting at a high enough level at that skill position that it's going to work for you. Now, they bring in Tatum. He's a really good back. You're not bringing enough good offensive linemen in. You're not bringing in top elite wideouts. By the way, you signed a kid in Daniels who is from my hometown in Franklinton. And I think the kid can play. But I do think that with all due respect to the kid, I think there's a reason that LSU passes on him. It's a massive reason why. And as of right now, we're watching 2 of the top 3 wide receivers in this year's draft, and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, who are from the state. Good. You got KJ Daniels. The kid can't play in this conference. I love him to death. I don't think the kid can play here. He's undersized. He's got a lot of speed. I just don't think that he can play here. So you can talk about recruiting all you want to. How much more time do you got to give Brent Venables? Because let me tell you something that else happens. Now that you're in this conference, the noise picks up much, much more from other fan bases targeting your coaching staff. Brent Venables sucks. He can't recruit. It's going to be a gauntlet for them. And if Oklahoma wants to be serious, they're going to have to spend a lot of money on the offensive side of the ball. Guys, it's not great right now. They have more question marks. I can make the argument that they have just as many question marks as anybody in the country. All right. It is what it is. All right, let me do this. Let's regroup really quickly. I want to talk about this Lane Kiffin thing and the SEC schedule. Let me get to a quick break. We come right back. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
J&J has protected Louisiana homes and businesses for over 60 years.
Call him today, make the pests go away. J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
All right, let's get to this. So Lane Kiffin was at the podium either yesterday or the day before. I apologize. Forgive me for misremembering. There's been so much going on. But I thought that Lane Kiffin had some very interesting words this past week in reference to offense, specifically in offense when it comes to the radio or the microphone in the helmet for coaches to be able to communicate with their quarterbacks and getting play calls called in. He talked about how it was something that he wanted and has been an advocate for. I know that there was a viral clip that we posted about Brian Kelly doing it and saying the same exact thing. I think him and Lane are a lot alike in the same things that they talk about in the talking points, but it's two offensive-minded head coaches that have wanted this for sign stealing, and obviously the Michigan thing pushed it over the edge. I do think it's interesting that Lane Kiffin said that it is like a cheat code for the offense. I don't completely disagree with him. And in case you missed it, just so you know, it's like a lot like the NFL. Quarterback's going to have the microphone in the helmet where the coach can talk to the player, give him the play, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I look at, though, okay, with this is when Lane Kiffin said it's going to be a cheat code, okay? I don't disagree with him when it comes to that. What I would say to Lane is he wouldn't go into specifics, but he's a guy that's had experience in doing it. Okay. The funny thing about this is, can he call in a play and tell Jackson Dart or any coach for that matter, call in a play and say, listen, we're going to run trips left, Y motion, X sluggo, whatever play he wants to call, and him tell the quarterback where he wants to throw. They're going to be in this coverage. If they're in this coverage, throw it, because when the clock is going down, the microphone turns off at 15 seconds. I do think it's a cheat code for the offense. Don't forget that the defense gets it too. Don't forget that either. I do think that there's one thing we're not talking about. I do think that puts more pressure on these young quarterbacks to be better because you have the coaches in their ear, and it puts more pressure on the offensive play callers and defensive play callers now that you're able to do that. But in all of this arguably has to be the biggest on-field thing that has happened to college football in the last 2 years. The running clock, the 2-minute warning, all of that does not equate to the helmet or the radio or microphone in the helmet. It doesn't. Because a head coach being able to communicate with a middle linebacker or being able to communicate with a quarterback it's going to help the game in so many different ways. It's going to make offenses a lot better, that's for sure. But I do question, okay, in the NFL, it gets loud, stadiums gets loud, but it's different in college football. You got some places and stadiums where 100,000 are rocking and rolling, What if the quarterback can't hear? I still think that signals are going to be a thing in college football. I don't think you can get away from it. I think you got to be prepared to do it. I don't know how much Josh Heupel uses it at Tennessee. He's very cagey in what he says and how he says it about this. But it's going to be really fun. Let me say this, too, about Ole Miss, because Ole Miss has been in the news a lot today. Whoa. An official 428 for Malik Neighbors? No. Anyway, Ole Miss has been in the news here a lot lately. Prince Umanmielen, who was a defensive end for Florida, was asked about, what was the difference between Florida and being at Ole Miss. And he said, well, clearly at Florida, they were just telling me to be an athlete and go and play or whatever. They didn't coach me. They didn't teach me. They didn't develop me from a schematical standpoint. Then Florida fans shot back, as they normally do, and probably should have, about some of the lazy plays that Umanmielen had. I'm just going to say this before we get out of here. And I want to be cautious on how to say this. When you're a team that is constructed the way that Ole Miss is, you go into the portal, you get Prince Umanmielen, you get Walter Nolan, you get a lot of guys from out of the portal. You spend a lot of money in doing it. You get guys like Trey Amos. You attack things very aggressively defensively. You better put up and you better show up. Because if you don't, and all the chatter that you're doing right now in spring and all the things that you did in the portal, this conference and teams around college football, fan bases around college football will chew you up and spit you out. I wish, and if I were Ole Miss, I don't mind the chirping. I don't mind it. But you better perform. You better 1,000% perform. I think Prince Umanmielen can. But Prince Umanmielen against really good teams, by the way, just throwing this out there, against ranked opponents or better ranked opponents, didn't have a sack against LSU. Didn't have a sack against Georgia. Better be careful what you say, because it could come back and bite you in the ass. Ole Miss better be careful, man. Look, I'm very high on Ole Miss. Very high on Ole Miss. I think from a talent perspective, they are arguably one of the most talented teams in the conference and in the nation. Talent doesn't always win you everything. You got to bring in the coaching too. Okay. See if we got any comments. How about that? I'm trying to watch Malik Neighbors here too, and the guys at Pro Day. Looking forward to Jaden Daniels throwing too. All right. Let's get to a couple of your comments before we get out of here. Paul Sub says, Casey Thompson. Oh, we saw that. Ryan says, recruiting in SEC is a grind. You're right, to AYS Sports. The noise does pick up. You're right. Spend that money. Yeah, you got to spend that money. Yeah, Oklahoma's got to spend that money. That is for sure. 1,000% for sure. All right. Oh, SEC schedule? Yeah, I can talk about it. Look, we'll talk about it before we get out of here. Greg Sankey and the SEC made an announcement last week. We weren't able to talk about it. We were out of the SEC show. We did mention it on AYS on our later show about it. I do think that Greg Sankey was lazy in this scheduling. Very lazy. I understand he's got a lot more things going on. I understand that he's got things that he has to do that are more pressing to him. Can we just get a better schedule? Like, why did you just flip the home and aways? Why? It's lazy. You told me you did away with division so that teams could play other teams that they're not historically going to play. Why? Like, for example, this team, LSU, they need their rematch at home versus Texas. No, I don't want to go back there. COVID ruined Texas coming into Death Valley. No. I remember the guy behind me, they put his daddy, Joe Burrow's daddy, in the nosebleed. I want my lick back. I want them to come here. I want to put their fans in the nosebleed. F you. Those are the kinds of rivalries. When's Georgia going to Kyle Field? It's lazy. Guys, it's lazy. I do fear that Greg Sankey and company has gotten lazy on some things because of things that they're having to work with NIL and the portal. That's no excuse. Refereeing, umpiring has gotten worse in the league. The biggest problem that Greg Sankey has had as commissioner is the constant decline of officiating. It's been horrific. It's going to continue to be horrific because he doesn't change anything about it. None of these guys get suspended. I understand what Greg Sankey is going through. I sympathize with what Greg Sankey is going through. But do not do not give him the way out by saying he's got to worry about NIL in the portal. Well, what is he doing with all the other days of his week? How much is he changing NIL in the portal? He's not working on this every single day. He needs to get his tail and his staff. They need to be working other things like schedule. I don't want to have to play. Why do we have to do these home and homes? Screw the home and homes. It's dumb. To be honest with you, this is who's running college football, man. Like, I think Greg Sankey's been the best commissioner in my lifetime. Don't think that it's close. Think he got lazy. By the way, the day that the schedule was released, he was on Capitol Hill. It's not your job to worry to fix NIL in the portal when everybody else is trying to do it and they can't do it. You have tried, you have failed so far. Get up and try again, but you have failed. Don't fail your fan base. Don't fail the fan base that is keeping you employed. You've done, Greg has done so many things great for this conference. He's made the teams in this conference a lot of money, but the money does not equate how sometimes he does things that's absolutely dog foolish. So we'll see. All right. We'll see you guys tonight. 6 o'clock, Ruffino and Joe Show will go around college football, and then 7 p.m. we'll talk some LSU. Until then, we'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good day. Peace.